Next is the cognition and development. Ability to solve problems or to adjust in the new environment is the definition of intelligence. The founder of behaviorism is J.B. Watson. Concrete operation occurs at the age of 7 to 12 years. How many groups are usually made in experimental method? 2. Child development study useful for teachers. Independent variable is applied to experimental group. Life of individual starts from zygote. How many factors affect growth? 2. Heredity and environment. Classical conditioning was presented by Ivan P. Pavlov. The variable whose effect is sought is called independent variable. The variable which is affected by independent variable is called dependent variable. Variables other than independent variable which can affect dependent variable are called relevant variable. Method in which keen study of any event or behavior is made is observation method. Study of behavior under controlled conditions is experimental method. Growth of children is studied in the development method. Sensory disabilities are studied in psychophysical method. Period starting from zygote to 250 to 300 days is prenatal period. Period starting from birth to 2 weeks is neonate period. Period starting from 13 years to 19 years is adolescence, which is not the heredity factor. Diet. Which one is not the environmental factor? Height. Cognitive development deals with mind. How many stages of cognitive development are described by John Piaget? 4. Period starting from birth to 2 years in cognitive development is sensory motor stage. Period starting from 2 to 7 years cognitive development is 2 to pre-operational stage 2 to 7 years. Period starting from 7 to 12 years in cognitive development is concrete operational stage. Period from 12 years and onward in cognitive development is formal operational stage. 12 से आगे का जितना child forgets the things out of sight in sensory motor stage 0 to 2 years होती है. Child describes himself unsystematically in pre-operational stage 2 to 7 years. Child thinks logically in concrete operational stage 7 to 12 years. Whose role is important in moral development? Parent, teacher, peers, sorry. Emotional development is affected by fear, quarreling parents, restriction, ये सारी चीजें आती हैं. Permanent change in behavior as a result of experience is learning. According to behaviorism, which one is important for change in behavior environment? Stimulus is necessary for response in operant conditioning. Operant conditioning was presented by B.F. Skinner. Change in behavior is due to reinforcement in operant conditioning. Which one is not positive reinforcement punishment? Concept of meaningful learning through perception was presented by David Ausubel. Concept of meaningful learning through structure of content and discovery was presented by J.S. Burner. The founder of humanistic approach is Maslow. According to humanistic approach, nature of man is good, creative, capable of healthy growth. The founder of client-centered therapy was Carl Roger. According to Roger, in problem solving, the most important is client. Who did discriminate the personality characteristics or traits? Gordon. The IQ of average child is 90 to 110. The IQ of mentally retarded child is below 90. Which type of growth of child is important? Physical, mental, and moral. The meaning of word psychology is study of soul. The word psychology derived from Greek word who says man is a conscious animal. William Vernon and William James. Growth means an increase in size, height, or weight. Development means change in form, structure, shape. Cognitive development means mental development. Out of sight, out of mind is the characteristic of sensory motor state. In cognitive domain, infancy is the state of motor stage. In the cognitive domain, early childhood is a pre-operational stage. In cognitive development, late childhood is concrete operational stage. In cognitive development, adolescence is beginning of a formal operational stage. The characteristic of sensory motor stage is evidence of thinking ability, curiosity to know the environment, ability of differentiate things. ये सारी चीजें. The characteristics of pre-operational stage is ये दोनों ही है. Egocentrism और animism. IQ stand for intelligence quotient. Stern formula to determine IQ is MA यानी mental age over chronological age multiply by 100 यानी MA बटा CA ज़रबे 100. The formula to determine IQ is given by Stern. Guidance in education started in 1905. Who is considered the father of guidance? Frank Parsons. First intelligence test was developed in 1905. Who developed the first intelligence test? Binet. Guidance is helpful in making choices, making adjustments, solving problems. Face-to-face relationship in which one tries to solve the problem of the other is called counseling. Psychology, the study of human behavior. Age of a pre-operational stage in Piaget cognitive development theory is from 2 to 7 years. Psychoanalysis, a school thought in psychology, was introduced by Freud. The IQ of the gifted children is 140 and above, यानी 140 से ऊपर होता है. Cognitive learning theory is known as information processing theory. Laws of learning were founded by Pavlov. Founder of the intelligence test was Binet. The name of the psychologist who said that most of the fears of human beings are conditionally learned. Watson. Carl Rogers presented person-centered counseling. Law of learning associated with reinforcement in operant conditioning is ये सारे law of readiness, law of exercise, law of act. Interests, attitudes, appreciation, skills, and achievements are primarily the product of learning. Ability to think in novel and unusual ways called creativity, which is basic born emotion, fear. Piaget presented the theory of cognitive development. Model of 8 types of learning was designed by Gagne. The process of adaptation in Piaget cognitive development theory is assimilation and accommodation. The process of helping individual make life adjustment at home, school, and other phases of life is called guidance. Hierarchy of needs was presented by Maslow. At which stage of cognitive development Piaget the child develops subject permanence, concrete operational in 7 to 12 years. The pioneer of identifying individual differences was Francis Galton. The learning method that is associated with observing of behavior of others is called learning by imitation, which is the basic born emotion love, who was the first psychologist, Aristotle. Founder of socio-psychological development was Erikson, who is not the type of memory, which is not the type of memory, strong memory. बाकी सारी टाइप है, सेंसरी, लॉन्ग और शॉर्ट टर्म मेमोरी सारी टाइप है, स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं है. Perception and attention play major role in long-term memory. Logical thinking, according to John Piaget, starts at the stage of concrete operations. Experiments on learning by insight were performed by Kohler. Translation of concrete experiences, development of logical thinking are given by Piaget. Theory of self-actualization and sense of identity was presented by Maslow. Semantic memory is memory of our meanings. Which school of thought Sigmund Freud belongs to? Psychoanalysis. Trial and error theory was presented by Thorndike. Pavlov's work was with dogs. Learning by insight theory is also called as Gestalt. Stimulus plays a dominant role according to classical conditioning. Response plays a dominant role according to parent conditioning. Cognitive learning theory was presented by Brunner. Projective techniques are used to measure personality. Cause of frustration is सारी चीजें frustration का बायस बनती हैं. Forces in the environment, personal weakness, conflicts amongst motives. In pre-operational stage, child learns rapidly ability of ये दोनों चीजें language और ability of expression दोनों पाई जाती हैं. Child begins to understand the principles of the conservation at concrete operational stage. In concrete operational stage, child increases knowledge और makes discussion and meets people. ये सारी चीजें इसके अंदर है. Mental development reach at its climax during formal operational stage. The main characteristic of formal operational stage is imagination, statics and creativity. ये सारी चीजें. Thinking and reasoning is the characteristic of formal operational stage. The word emotion is derived from the Latin word immover. Immover means stir up. The word moral is derived from the Latin word mos. Mos means custom, manner, or habit. The theory of psychological development was presented by Rickson. The theory of moral development presented by Lawrence Kohlberg. Hierarchy of needs was presented by Maslow. Concept of discovery learning was given by Ausubel. Alfred Binet worked on intelligence tests. Stimulus that strengthens the response of an organism is reinforcement. According to Maslow, the most important are physiological needs. Physical growth is affected by biological factors and environmental factors. Learning means change in behavior. First book on psychology was written by Aristotle. Educational psychology is the branch of applied psychology. The discipline of psychology is since the birth of man. Behaviorism is associated with J.B. Watson. If a student has an age of 11 years from psychological point of view, he or she is placed in adolescence. A need is to food as an emotive is to certain kind of food. A need is to hunger as a stimulus is to the smell of food. Motivation is best defined in terms of internal forces within the individual. Belonging, affection, and status are best classified as motives, which come third in series in Maslow's classification, love. The most of the differences in trust are due to the difference in experiential background. The interest of boys in sports reached its peak in pre-adolescent period. Pre-adolescent period. Change in behavior result from maturation and learning. At birth, the average weight of a full-term baby is boys 8 pounds or girls 7 pounds. At birth, which of the following is closest to its final adult level? Number of brain cells. An emotion is best defined as an excited state arising in response to stimuli. Emotional response to symbolic stimuli is primarily the result of learning. The first emotional expression to appear in infants is general excitement. The greatest degree of insecurity is due to fear. The best known study on social development is that of Parton. The most fundamental agency in the life of boys and girls is the home. Mental development is closely parallel to increase in ability to profit from experience. Intelligence, as presently defined, is synonymous with scholastic aptitude, which is measured by in intelligence, verbal ability. Intelligence tests measure academic potential. Ahmad is bright, Akbar is dull. They are now 6 years of age. As they grew older, the difference in their IQ will probably remain relatively constant. Mental age of a child is measure of level of mental maturity. IQ is an index of rate of mental development. What type of health of a child is of utmost importance that an elementary school teacher should keep in mind for the growth of the child. A, B and C, any physical, mental and emotional. When do we learn better according to Thorndike's laws of exercise? Practice it. How would you define psychology? Study of behavior. John Piaget was born in Switzerland. The subject matter of educational psychology is inferred from problem being faced by classroom teachers in the classrooms. An internal state of mind of a person which forces to do something and that is aroused as a result of some internal need of the person is called motivation. The age measured by an intelligence test is called mental age. WISE is the intelligence test for high school students. The growth and learning of a child is affected by heredity and environment. Control is an important characteristic of experimental method. Cognitive development deals with the development of child mind. Identical twins are not identical in learning. IQ of 7 years old child with an mental age of 8 years would be placed in IQ, yani intelligence quotient distribution table as average, yani 90 to 110 तक. The central concept in Freud's psychoanalytical theory is unconscious mind. Moral development involves what is right and wrong. Those relatively stable and permanent aspects of individuals which make them unique but which also allow people to be compared with each other and define personality. An individual who is socially maladjusted develops immoral behavior. Educational psychology revolves around three areas: the learner, the learning process, and learning situation. The term growth is used in purely physical sense. Try to understand something new by fitting it what is already known as simulation. The logical goal, direction, action of a child that starts at the stage of formal operation. Uh, Wechsler scale is a test to measure intelligence. The age of 6 to 12 years, as narrated by Rickson, in his theory of psychosocial development, is concerned with the stage of industry versus inferiority. A child acquires the ability to solve abstract problems in logical fashion in the period of formal operational. Edward Thorndike is known due to his contribution for operant conditioning. Process through which experience causes permanent change in knowledge or behavior is called learning. The age of 3 to 6 years are narrated by Rickson in his theory of psychosocial development is concerned with the stage initiative versus guilt. The process in which human organism becomes favorably related to the environment is adjustment. The immediate awareness of any object is consciousness. The discipline concerned with the teaching and learning process applying the methods and theories of psychology is educational psychology. The learner and learning theories are studied in psychology. Orderly adaptive changes individual go through from conception to death is development. Changes in body structure and function over time is physical development. Changes by which mental process become more complex is cognitive development. Psychologists define heredity as transfer of characteristic to newborn from their parents, a mental process that occurs when a child adjusts to new information is accommodation. The characteristic of an object stays the same even though the object might change in appearance. Conservation. View that emphasizes the active role of the learner in building knowledge and understanding is constructivism. The state when a person realizes that his or her current ways of thinking are not to understand a situation is disequilibrium. Assuming that others experience the world the way you do is egocentrism. A search for mental balance between cognitive schemes and information from the environment is equilibration. Basic structural framework that exists in a person's mind to organize and interpret information is schema. The ability to use symbols to represent actions or objects is semiotic function. Arranging objects in sequence according to one aspect is seriation. Focusing on only one characteristic is centration. The ability to logically combine relations to understand certain conclusion is transitivity. A phase at which a child can master task if given appropriate help and support is zone of proximal development ZPD बोलते हैं. A sense of concern for future generation is generativity. The complex answer to the question who am I is identity. Eagerness to engage in productive work is industry. Willingness to begin new activities and explore new directions is initiative. Sense of self acceptance and fulfillment is integrity. A technique that involves changing the level of support for learning is scaffolding. A value that one places on one's characteristics abilities or behaviors is self-esteem. Learning in which a neutral stimulus becomes associated with a meaningful stimulus and requires the capacity to elicit a similar response is classical conditioning. Learning in which the consequences of behavior produce changes in the probability that the behavior will occur is operant conditioning. Memory that holds information from the world in its original form for only an instant is sensory memory. Memory in which information is retained as long as 30 seconds is short-term memory. Memory that holds a lot of information in a relatively permanent fashion is long-term memory. A general approach that views learning as an active mental process of acquiring, remembering, and using knowledge is cognitive view. A continuous process which never comes to an end is learning. Punishment is an example of extrinsic motivation, approach to motivation that emphasizes personal freedom, choice, self-examination, and striving for personal growth is humanistic. Motivation associated with activities that are their own reward is intrinsic motivation. Area of classroom where the greatest amount of interaction takes place is action zone. ये कुछ ह्यूमन मेमोरी से रिलेटेड इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स हैं ह्यूमन मेमोरी जो है वो डिवाइड की गई है सेंसरी जो है वो 1 सेकंड शॉर्ट टर्म मेमोरी वर्किंग मेमोरी इसको 1 मिनट में 1 मिनट तक होती है और लॉन्ग टर्म मेमोरी लाइफ टाइम होती है इसके बाद है जी कि इसकी मजीद डिवीजन की गई एक्सप्लिसिट और इम्प्लिसिट एक्सप्लिसिट में कॉन्शियस होता है इम्प्लिसिट में अनकॉन्शियस होता है ठीक है जी फिर आगे मजीद डिवाइड किया गया आप पढ़ सकते हैं देख सकते हैं